How is China kicking Germany in the gut because of electric cars? China's electric vehicle industry is booming, but it's causing problems. Both the US and Europe want to limit Chinese EVs, and it seems Germany might need to join hands with them. What exactly is happening with these EV-focused leaders? In Europe, the focus is on making sure the market's fair. They want to protect their own car makers by setting rules and tariffs on Chinese EVs. Europe hopes this will encourage local businesses to grow and innovate. Meanwhile, the US is taking a tougher stance. They're not just worried about competition, but also about security. The US is implementing stricter measures like high tariffs and strict regulations to keep Chinese EVs out of the market. They believe this will boost their own EV industry and protect national interests. Will these strategies work? Will they help local businesses, or will they create a new problem? China's selling a lot of electric vehicles to other countries. In 2023, the value of these exports went up by 70%, hitting $34.1 billion. Because of this, Europe and the United States are paying more attention. They're looking for ways to slow down China's growth in the global electric car market, using trade rules and policies to do so. In March 2024, the Biden administration said electric cars are a threat to US national security. In April, US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen visited China and talked about the problem of making too many green products. She said this hurts the US electric car and solar industries. Meanwhile, in October of the previous year, the European Union started looking into whether China is unfairly supporting its electric car makers. They might be putting extra taxes on Chinese car companies in 2024. With fewer people in China buying cars, the country is worried about Europe and the US trying to limit its electric car exports. The same goes for Germany. The EU and the US have different goals when it comes to Chinese electric cars. Now Germany is in the mix as well. The EU wants to keep the market fair, while the US wants to stay the top player in the electric car industry. The EU buys the most Chinese electric cars, almost 40% of China's exports. By 2024, it's expected that 1 in 4 cars sold in Europe will be made in China. This shows that Chinese electric cars are very important in Europe and have affected the local car industry, risking jobs. About 14 million people in Europe work in the car industry, which is 6.1% of the EU's workforce. Unlike Europe, the United States doesn't buy many Chinese electric cars. In 2023, China sold only $368 million worth of electric cars to the US. The US market is still mostly controlled by local brands. The Biden administration has kept the tariffs that were set by the Trump administration. This includes an extra 25% tariff on top of the regular 2.5% import duty on cars. These higher tariffs have made it hard for Chinese cars to enter the US market. The reason behind the EU and US actions to limit Chinese electric cars are different. The EU wants to keep its market fair and orderly, while the US wants to dominate the global electric vehicle market and stay on top. The EU uses clear investigations and trade rules. The European Commission started looking into Chinese electric cars on its own, not because of complaints from the local car industry. This investigation could take up to 13 months, showing the EU's careful and fair approach. The US takes a different approach by quickly making economic issues about security. This is consistent with how they handle Chinese companies, whether it's smartphones, social media, or e-commerce. They focus on data security risks. Even though Chinese electric cars have little impact on the US market, the Biden administration sees them as a nationwide security threat. They worry that these cars could send sensitive information to the Chinese government. Because of this, the Commerce Department started a security threat investigation which could lead to new rules or limits on Chinese cars. So the EU uses proper trade rules to deal with Chinese electric cars, which means long investigations. On the other hand, the US treats these issues as a security problem, making it more political and less clear. The EU's tools and effects are different too. They might add extra taxes on Chinese electric cars this year, increasing the current 10% tax to over 20%. Germany, which has had a small drop in its economy in 2023, is worried about China hitting back with tariffs. The German Chancellor went to China to talk about working together economically. There are rumours that China's Commerce Minister and President might also go to France to sort out some trade problems. Europe might not want to quickly make trade problems with China worse in 2024. There's still a chance Donald Trump could become US President again, and that might cause issues between Europe and the US. For China, Europe's trade rules could really slow down their electric car sales. This worries the Chinese government and businesses because Europe buys a lot of Chinese electric cars. When China's President Xi visits Europe soon, they'll probably talk about subsidies for electric cars and the problem of making too many cars. But the US doesn't have as many options to limit Chinese electric cars, and it hasn't affected them much since China doesn't sell many cars to the US. The US Department of Commerce can start investigating into whether China is unfairly helping its electric car companies anytime. Also, there are hints that the Biden administration might put more taxes on China. On April 17th, The US trade representative said they're planning to use new taxes and other trade rules to fight against China's unfair policies. Congress wants to raise the taxes on Chinese electric cars even more, which are already pretty high at 27.5%. Some lawmakers really don't want Chinese electric cars in the US market. For example, in February, Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri suggested putting a tax of up to 100% on Chinese electric cars. Another Senator, Marco Rubio from Florida, said there should be a tax of $20,000 on each electric car brought into the US. Since Chinese electric cars are cheaper, they could become more popular in the US and Germany. That's why the Biden administration might make the rules even stricter. They might even decide to ban Chinese electric cars from the US market completely if investigations show they're a security threat. Chinese electric car makers know it's tough to sell cars in the US, and they expected the US to put taxes on their cars. Selling cars to the US is only a small part of their business, so the US taxes don't hurt them much. Also, unlike other Chinese industries that rely on US technology and materials, the electric car industry in China doesn't need much from the US. So the usual tactics to the US users, like controlling exports and limiting investments, don't work as well in stopping Chinese electric cars from being sold worldwide. Remember when Elon Musk didn't take Chinese company BYD seriously? Well, now BYD is leading the way in electric vehicles, selling more than Tesla in the last quarter. Back in 2011, Musk laughed at BYD's products and didn't see them as a competition. But now, BYD has grown from making phone batteries to being one of the biggest electric car companies worldwide. They're even expanding overseas really fast. The German Chancellor, once during a visit to China, asked Chinese companies to be fair by not making too many cheap products or breaking copyright rules. He said this while travelling with business leaders and government officials for 3 days in China. He also promised to encourage the European Union not to help its own companies by limiting trades with other countries. Scholz talked a lot about cars. He thinks Chinese cars should be sold in Europe, but European cars should also be able to sell well in China. During a chat with students at Tongji University in Shanghai, he stressed the importance of fair competition. He said it's crucial to avoid selling products too cheaply, making too many, or stealing ideas from others. He also asked Chinese officials to make it easy for companies to start factories in China. This is something foreign companies often complain about when they try to set up in Germany. He said, "We want our companies to face no obstacles, but we'll treat others the same way." This visit was his first since his government started a plan last July to reduce risks. They don't want Germany to rely too much on China's economy, which is the second biggest in the world. This visit happens when Germany relies on China more than ever for things it makes. They're looking closely at stuff like solar panels and wind turbines. Lots of these things come from China, flooding European markets and hurting local businesses. Now, Chinese cars are also causing worries for European makers. On top of that, online stores like Temu and Shein are becoming popular in Europe. They sell super cheap stuff made in China. Scholz was careful when asked if he'd support the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's idea to stop Chinese products from taking over the market. He said it's important to talk about fair competition, but it should come from a place of confidence, not just trying to protect ourselves. He remembered when Japanese and South Korean cars first came to Europe. People worried, just like they do now with Chinese cars. But he thinks that worry is nonsense. Japanese cars are now in Germany, and German cars are in Japan. The same thing is happening between China and Germany. What do you think about the whole situation? Let us know in the comments below, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Until next time, see you later.